Cyber threat intelligence has become increasingly popular over the last few years, and with that rise comes a variety of questions for organizations around the topic. What types of threat intelligence are available? How can that intelligence be implemented at different levels of an organization? And most importantly, how can it help to limit the overall cyber risk facing an organization? On this episode of the Cyber Chat podcast, SurfWatch Labs Chief Security Strategist Adam Meyer attempts to answer those questions and shed some light on the growing and evolving field. Threat intelligence is a big buzzword in cybersecurity right now, but it's been around a long time in the physical space. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on why it's grown so much and continues to grow, particularly when it comes to cyber risk management.
Well, Jeff, I think threat intelligence as kind of a capability is starting to gain more traction because people are starting to get better fidelity in the data that they're receiving from their own internal collection as well as partnering with vendors like SurfWatch. And they're starting to see that you have to really understand what's going on in your industry, particularly, so that you can get a better sense of what threats are kind of out there on the landscape, right? So I always use business intelligence as an example where companies for many years have been, tracking finances, they track their customers, they track marketing, they track, kind of the sentiment of the market, if you will, and then they compile that information together and they start making decisions against it, right, for the good of the business. Threat intelligence is quickly going in that same route. Instead of a business intelligence, you're really kind of looking at it from a risk perspective because every product and service that an organization supports today in today's climate depends on technology in some way, shape, or form in order to be successful, right? We all depend on it every single day. And so obviously, if that technology is impacted, it causes a risk to the organization. It can impact business operations, right? So I think a lot of organizations are starting to see that linkage together that, business is dependent on technology and so therefore need to track risks against that technology, and threat intelligence is more and more being able to provide that context, that awareness, the threat landscape out there so, decision makers can make more informed decisions.
I wanted to get your thoughts on the different categories of threat intelligence, because I've heard you talk in the past about strategic threat intelligence, operational threat intelligence, tactical threat intelligence. Wondering if you could briefly explain the difference between those categories and what levels of the organization that each of them are targeted towards.
Sure, and I think that's important because there's a lot of vendors and marketing out there about threat intelligence. A lot of the discussions going on all use the term threat intelligence, but it really kind of has different meanings depending on the purpose of it. And so typically we'll follow three types of categories of threat intelligence. As you mentioned, tactical, operational, and strategic. Tactical typically being that on the network, low level, technical type of threat intelligence where you typically have your indicators compromises. So malicious URLs, malicious IPs, hash type of data. And then at the operational level, we typically look at it at the campaign level, right? So who is the most active in my industry? What are they typically targeting? What's their capabilities? What's their motives? What's their intentions? Kind of what's the activity level out there as it relates to my organization. And then you have strategic, which is where a lot of the business alignment can happen, where you're translating the capabilities out there, intentions out there of adversaries, how they're targeting things, and comparing it against you as an organization. And so therefore you have that business linkage going on. And typically we like to say we firmly sit right there in the operational and strategic levels for threat intelligence.
Yeah, I wanted to find out when working with different customers if there's one category that stands out where most organizations are maybe falling behind or need to improve the most on, or is it that they really need to focus on all three equally?
Well, what I've been seeing kind of emerge in the past several months is a focus on strategic type of intelligence. And this is actually backed up by a recent Forrester report that was released not too long ago. The title is Achieve Early Success in Threat Intelligence with the Right Collection Strategies, what Forrester puts out. And their premise with that, one of the key aspects of that report is where they really would think that a lot of organizations should start with strategic intelligence capabilities as you venture into intelligence for the first time, start building your own capability so that you can communicate your strategy to the decision makers more effectively. Definitely, I've seen that myself working with customers quite a bit. One of the use cases I've given in the past where I've personally briefed the board years ago in prior roles, and I was asked, hey, Adam, are we well positioned for cyber risks or are we not? And if not, why not? Right? That's kind of that underlying requirement statement there. And in order to answer that, strategic starts making a lot more sense as a start point. And so that way you can start putting some rigor around, okay, now in order to answer that question, I need to go get a collection capability together. I need to collect for certain things. I need to pull that off using automation, using human expertise. I need to start putting something more organized together, and strategic more and more sounds like a good starting point.
Another issue that you brought up recently in one of your blogs that I was reading is you talked about there's a lot of confusion out there, and you put this on the vendors because they're positioning threat data as finished intelligence, when you said, in fact, that data is just the starting point for the process. So what should organizations be looking for when examining threat intelligence solutions to ensure that they get the full picture and not just that first point?
Right. Well, so I think a couple different things, as I mentioned, and I've written about this in the past as well, about having a collection plan. And so when you look at standing up an intelligence capability, you really need to understand, well, what type of question are you trying to get answered? Right. So when you look at historical intelligence, and typically that's coming out of the armed forces, they're looking to build their collection plans around specific objectives. Right. They have a specific objective that they're looking to get insight into. And so that's a requirement. In order to do that, you've got to build certain collection capabilities in order to get the information in-house to start analysis against that. Right. So you can make an informed decision. As you brought up, a lot of times, some vendors are just saying, hey, we collect millions and millions of data points and we dump it into a repository to give you access to it. There's your threat intelligence. To me, that's just data. It hasn't been evaluated. It hasn't been put through the process of analysis in order to compare the data collected versus your objectives, right? Answering those questions. And so that's where the intelligence process should come in. And 99% of the time, you need a human being in the loop doing that level of effort, whether it's an individual or a team, or you bring on a vendor partner like SurfWatch to do it for you. So you have to look at it through that vein. The intelligence cycle, the intelligence process, the intent is to deliver finished and evaluated intelligence and put it on the desk of the decision maker that helps them make better decisions in regards to what their objectives are. And so if you're not doing that, you're not technically, in my book, doing intelligence. You may be doing great automated collection and you're pulling in this raw data, but data is just data, and it doesn't translate into intelligence unless it goes through that evaluation process. So there has to be that combination of automation and human expertise.
My final question then is, we're talking about the evolution of threat intelligence and how it's changing. Just wondering where you see it going forward in the next couple of years.
Well, I think threat intelligence has already come a long way in the past couple of years, right? So the intelligence vendor community is still trying to get its act together, if you will, and defining what intelligence services or capabilities or offerings bring the most value to the end user, right? And so we've gone through different ebbs and flows with that, because threat intelligence historically came from feeds, right? IOC feeds at the tactical level, and it's kind of morphed into meaning different things like we just talked about. I think intelligence is going to expand to beyond, and it already is, to be honest, but it's going to expand to beyond just that typical IT security centric type of intelligence and start including broader threat information, meaning fraud information, right? So a lot of what SurfWatch does, I would say a good 50% of my day is spent around the fraud aspects of intelligence rather than the typical IT security centric type of intelligence. So you're seeing, what's my fraud footprint look like? What does my digital risk look like? What is my organization's level of presence out there in the digital world? And how are people using that presence to cause me problems, right? Cause me risks, and then what can I do about it? So all those types of things is coming into play. And so I think intelligence will start bringing on different silos, right? Like I mentioned in the beginning, just like in business intelligence, there's, finances and marketing and product and, all these different verticals and business intelligence that decision makers look, you're going to see different verticals going on.
Well, thanks for stopping by to record this podcast, Adam. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
The Cyber Chat podcast is brought to you by SurfWatch Labs. SurfWatch Labs helps organizations and service providers quickly establish a strategic cyber threat intelligence operation that drives more effective use of their tactical defenses. For more information on cyber risk intelligence, check out surfwatchlabs.com.